Back to Squawk Box again, in retail sales last month coming in below expectations, both on the headline number and ex-autos. Joining us now for some instant reaction, Matthew Shay, National Retail Federation President and CEO, Jharonne Martis, Director of Consumer Research at Refinitiv, and Justin Norman, Vice President of Data Science at Yelp. Matt, I'll start off with you. What do you make of this? Because it's not just the below consensus estimates that came in for the month, but also the revisions lower for previous months. And how do you think about a reduced benefit going forward, and if there's a sort of compounding effect, consumers know that it's going to be reduced, consumers think that it may not be coming, and so that they pull back even more?
Yeah, Melissa, first of all, good morning. I think our view on this, the numbers are a little bit mixed, but as both Ricks, Rick Santelli and earlier Rick Reeder said, consumers are actually in pretty good shape. And if you think about the way consumers have been behaving over the past few months, they certainly responded well to the relief measures that the federal government, the fiscal stimulus that was put in place that supported the recovery, the $600 a month bonus, $600 a week bonus unemployment payments, as well as other dimensions of the relief program. So that did taper off. That ended in July. So not a surprise. We see a little lag in August. I think looking ahead, the question is going to be, how do consumers behave as we go into the holiday season, which we know is going to be beginning earlier. Everyone's behaving differently. You've already seen public announcements from retailers about how they're thinking differently about the holiday season. We're about to go live with a campaign helping to educate consumers about how to behave safely, responsibly, respond to the holiday season. So, I wouldn't get too worried about the August numbers because we've seen the relief recede. I'd be looking forward more to how we go into the holiday season and the rest of the year.
Jharonne, what sorts of data are you looking at to determine whether or not consumers will actually open up their wallets come Christmas, come Hanukkah, whatever holiday you celebrate at the end of the year?
Well, the one economic indicator that has the biggest correlation with spending is the unemployment number. And the Consumer Confidence Report is telling us that as the unemployment has begun to shrink, consumers are feeling slightly better about their economic situation. Still, with the money that they had in the second quarter, they definitely went out and splurged. Now that those checks have stopped coming in, we're seeing a slowdown going into the third quarter. The Refinitiv data tells us that for the second half of the year, spending is expected to be slower than what we saw in the second quarter, especially in the third quarter as consumers take a break right before the holiday season. Then the holiday season, we're expected to see earnings drop about 22% for the retailers. And then it's not until the first quarter of 2021 that we'll start seeing positive growth again.
Justin, what are you seeing on the closure front? I mean, restaurants and retailers were the hardest hit. Are you seeing closures tail off, start to taper? And does that jive with the economic data that we're seeing?
So it jives pretty well, but unfortunately, we are still seeing closures increase across all categories, but in particular, of course, for restaurants and retail, which are continue to be the hardest hit. Early on in the pandemic, we saw a lot of retail businesses be able to shift their operating models, offering things like curbside pickup, online ordering. And unfortunately, those measures aren't always enough to sustain the business over the long term. So we ended up seeing at the end of August about 30,000 total business closures in the retail sector and shopping categories at 17,500. And that's the majority of which are permanent. So what we're definitely going to see is a different landscape for consumers, both in how they access the shopping activities and then also the specific businesses that they're able to go to based on the closure data.